President.
The senator from New Hampshire.
Mr. President, I think most of us believe that we should not play politics when it comes to nuclear weapons. But in a speech this morning at the Heritage Foundation, our colleague, Senator Jim DeMint, claimed that the New START treaty weakens our national security. Now, I like our colleague from South Carolina, Jim DeMint. He's been the ranking member on the European Affairs Subcommittee of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, which I have chaired for the last 2 years, and we've worked very well together. But on this issue, he is just wrong. Nearly the entire foreign policy and national security establishment, Democrats and Republicans alike, completely disagrees with him. Senator DeMint is arguing that this treaty somehow weakens our national security and limits our strategic options. That argument has little basis in reality and is opposed by every living former Republican Secretary of State, 5 former Secretaries of Defense, 7 former commanders of our strategic nuclear weapons, foreign policy, and national security giants from 7 former presidential administrations, and former President George H.W. Bush. All of these national security heavyweights argue the exact opposite of Senator DeMint, and they all agree that the New START treaty strengthens our national security. The New START treaty has the unanimous backing of America's military leadership and America's NATO allies. And according to the most recent CBS News poll, the treaty now has the support of 82% of Americans. Now is the time to vote on the New START treaty. No one is rushing this treaty. Since the treaty was signed back in April, the Senate has had 245 days. I want to say that again. That's 245 days to thoroughly review and consider this agreement. After 20 Senate hearings, more than 31 witnesses, over 900 questions and answers, and 8 months of consideration, including a significant delay during the August recess for additional time before the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, the consensus is clear. New START is in our national security interests, and the Senate should not wait any longer to ratify this treaty. So I ask the opponents of this treaty to consider our broader national security interests. Think about the effect stalling this treaty or publicly rejecting it will have, not just on our ability to monitor Russia, because we've had no inspectors on the ground in Russia for over a year now, because the treaty expired on December the 5th, so it's been over a year, but also the effect on all of our counterproliferation efforts around the world. Failing to ratify New START this year tells the world that we are not serious about the nuclear threat. Now, I know my colleagues don't want Iran or North Korea or Al-Qaeda to have the bomb. We've heard that from everyone in this chamber. Everyone's very clear about that. And last week, 5 former Republican Secretaries of State from 5 former Republican presidents connected the passage of New START to our efforts on Iran and North Korea. So again, ask opponents of this treaty, are ideological goals worth the risk to our national security? Delaying a vote on New START into next year is a dangerous and unnecessary gamble with this nation's security. I hope the opponents of this treaty will reconsider their opposition and recognize how important it is to this country's security to pass this treaty this year in this Congress. Thank you, Mr. President. I yield the floor.